We are all set.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is Fran Backstrand, Chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Northborough. This is our public hearing on Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020 at 6 p.m. This open meeting of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with the Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Zoning Board of Appeals are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Zoning Board of Appeals to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. The members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comments.
Fran, if I could ask you to just lower your mic, please, on your headset.
My headset doesn't have any.
Yeah, you
Okay.
got the little, don't you have the,
No, these are cheap nonprofit headsets. So, is that lower?
No, you're fine.
Okay, because they lowered it on my computer. Okay. All right, so it is past the hour of 6 o'clock, and I am going to ask that, Mark Rattan has showed up. So it looks like we are going to have the 5 members of voting members as soon as he connects to audio. Just give me a second.
All right, so Fran, while we're waiting, that looks like a boom mic on your headset. Is that?
right there,
Like that?
Yeah. No,
and on your right?
I'd like you to bring it closer to your mouth. Right. Keep going a little further down. Yeah.
See that little stick, Fran, off your right headphone? That's your mic.
Yeah, this is the mic. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want you to lower it toward your mouth a little more.
It doesn't go any lower.
Okay. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, so I have to put it forward. Okay. Sorry. All right, Mark, are you here? Okay, well, let's see. While Mark is having technical difficulties for the first hearing, I'm going to call Jeff Leland as a voting member for the first hearing, which is, we're going to go to the continuation. So to consider the petition of NB Real Estate LLC for a variance special permit with site plan approval, special permit, groundwater protection overlay district to allow partial demolition of the existing building and to replace it with a new building that will be approximately in the existing footprint on the property located at 56 Hudson Street, map 54, parcel 84 in the downtown neighborhood district and groundwater protection overlay district area 3. And Kathy, I understand that they are asking for a continuance to our October 27th meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Who was that?
Jeff.
Okay,
And
so Jeff
you just
Leland
need-
moved to continue it.
You just need to state a time also.
Till 6 p.m. on the October, what date?
27th.
27th meeting.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Second?
Second.
Dick Rand seconded. Okay, so roll call vote. Start with Jeff,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
and Fran, aye. Okay, there you go. Thank you very much, Jeff. Your duties are complete.
Dismissed.
Mark, are you on?
I'm
Can
not
you hear
sure.
us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I
Okay.
can't believe I missed all that fun.
There you go. All right, so we're going to go from bottom up. The next one is also we're being asked to continue the continuation of the 329, 333. So we're hearing the continuation of the consideration of the petition of Amy Paretsky and Joanne Kraus for an appeal of the current conclusion of Robert J. Federico, CBO, Inspector of Building Zoning Enforcement Office, that the property located at 329, 333 West Main Street, map 81, parcels 13, 14, and 15, in the Business West District are now considered contractors' lots. And I understand somebody had a family emergency and they're asking for a continuance also, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion to continue it to the October 27th?
I move that we continue it to the October 27th meeting, you said? Okay.
Yes. At,
At 6 p.m.
okay, so that was Mark. Okay, and Dick seconded. Okay, so we're going to roll call again. Mark,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Fran, I. Okay, working our way up. Okay. All right, so the next one is the continuation of the consideration of the petition of Berlin Landing Realty Trust for an appeal to build a daycare center with an associated parking lot, which will be leased to an appropriately licensed nonprofit entity on the property located at 5 Barefoot Road, map 30, parcel 33, in the Industrial District and Residential C District. Now this, they just asked for a continuance because they had expected town council to be here to work out some discrepancies in interpretation, and town council isn't going to be here. Kathy, what I don't understand is they want to, I think the request was to our September 27th, our September meeting, but I don't know, can they do that?
Well, yes, that was my suggestion to
Okay.
them, because first of all, it was me that miscommunicated with town council. So I feel responsible for this, for not lining up town council to be here tonight. So you had requested back at, it was either I think it was at the July meeting to have town council at your August meeting. And then town council had a family emergency that day and was not able to get a letter to you nor come to your, attend your meeting that night. And I neglected to give him this new date of September 22nd.
Okay.
So what I let the applicant know that this afternoon, and then checked with town council if he was available September 29th or October 27th. And he did say right off the bat that he would be available September 29th. So I thought that perhaps you would consider doing this application first on September 29th. And so town council is available. He's able to attend your meeting. And I also just wanted to verify or kind of re-verify the questions that the board had for him. And as I recall, it was basically to get his opinion on the applicant's attorney and some of the abutters attorney are both have both discussed the same case in correspondence to the board. So they're both, suggesting that case supports their argument or arguments. And so I believe that we wanted clarification from town council as to, how does that particular case, it's called the Rogers case, but how that particular case, how does it affect the board? I believe that was the outstanding question.
Anyone recall or want additional information while we have Kathy's ear?
One thing, they withdrew their declaration that it would be a nonprofit.
Yes.
Yes. So it's just a daycare center. I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're waiting for town council's opinion on which position the Rogers case supports.
Yeah. That's how I understood it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I recall as well. That was Brad.
Agree.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. So then do I hear a motion to continue it into our September 29th meeting?
I move that we continue this till the September 29th meeting at 6 PM.
Okay, that was Mark. Second.
Second.
Oh, okay, we'll give it to Brad. That was a second from Brad. Okay. All right, so we'll do a roll call. Mark,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
and Fran, I. Okay,
So, Madam Chair, if I may, I think we also had another question for Town Council in regards to the 329, 333 appeal as well. And I think that was in regards to whether or not it was more of like the transferring of the special permit from the 1987 through to the current ownership, and whether or not they actually had to be there or actively using it. And I think that there was I think that was, if I remember from 2 months ago, that was a question that we had out to Town Council in regards to that case as well.
and you're correct. There was actually, and if he's going to be there, Kathy, we did have a question about the timeliness of the appeal, which has been clarified that it was timely under the current state of affairs. So that was already addressed. But yes, that I actually have two, which what is the town council's interpretation of non-use for 2 consecutive years? Because that was one question that came up. And is it non-conforming or is it still allowed by special permit from the 1987? Because the current zoning enforcement officer has interpreted the use today to be the same or similar to what was special permitted in 1987.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the debate with the appeal. And so I think we wanted to weigh in on what town council had to say about that. I
That's
think that
right.
was the crux of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so can you just, for my sake, because I was looking through my notes, in particular the July 28th meeting, and as you had said, I had written down about the appeal, and town council, responded to that. It actually didn't have anything to do with COVID.
Okay.
It's just the intent when someone sends something to the town clerk's office. So that was to be checked with town council, and then the section 07-08-050 about continuing the use on the property. And then what was the other question? I'm sorry.
The other was that our current zoning enforcement officer interpreted the current use to be the same as that which was special permitted in 1987. And the appellant's claim is the opposite because of other uses that have since been denied. Anyone else remember anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Yeah, I
so-
think that's it.
Okay, so I do see that there are people in attendance. So if anyone was here for the 329, 333 appeal of the zoning enforcement officer's decision, 56 Hudson Street or 5 Barefoot Road, we will not be taking any input from the public, and we're continuing them to the meetings that we just previously stated. But you're certainly all welcome to stay if you want.
And would board members, would you like to have, I can check his availability, but do you want town council to be at that October 27th meeting for this particular hearing for 329 West Main Street?
I don't think it'll hurt. How do others feel? I see nodding. Nodding doesn't come across.
Right.
I guess the best case scenario is that he would be there to be able to answer in real time, because I imagine that there might be some back and forth between, if he writes a letter, there might be some contradictions to that I imagine. So ideally, it would be better if he attended, but yeah, I mean, if he's going to come for next week, then I don't know.
I agree. Anyone else?
I think we should definitely have him come to the meeting to address those concerns, just like Paul said.
I would agree.
I'll agree.
I agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's fine.
Fabulous. Okay. So, without further ado, right up to the top, continuation of the consideration of the petition of the New Bridge Granite Corporation for a variance special permit with site plan approval, special permit groundwater protection overlay district to allow the finishing of marble and granite countertops and related items to be in a showroom to display and sell them on the property located at 329 West Main Street in the Business West District and the Groundwater Protection Overlay District 3. And now I'm going to look and see in our attendees, and hopefully we see. I'm looking for Mike. Is Mike Norris?
Yes, yep, Mike
Okay.
Norris.
All right, so I'm bringing Michael in, and Michael, is George with you tonight?
Mike, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I was asking if George Connors is with you as well, or is it?
No,
Okay,
he's in the waiting room.
I'm looking for him.
Yeah, he's in the attendee waiting
Oh,
room.
there he is. Okay, allow to talk. Okay, there you go. Thank you so much. Okay. So it's, if you want to state your name for the record and then tell us a little bit more about the application, please.
My name is Michael Norris. I'm an attorney in Marlboro. We should also have, my client should also be in the waiting room too.
Okay, and that is,
Sebastian Gomez and Patricia Texera.
okay, I see Patricia.
They're they should be together.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Oh, yep, I have Patricia in, and I'm sorry, the other person?
Sebastian, my husband, Sebastian Gomez.
Oh, is he on the same call with you?
Yes. He's with
Oh, okay, fabulous. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, do you need me to put the site plan up, or?
I was going to give a little introduction first,
Sure.
Kathy,
Sure,
and then we can put the site plan up and get to that.
okay,
This is the property at 329 West Main Street. And my clients have an agreement to rent a portion of it on the northwesterly corner of the building, which is near the big open parking area, which we'll be able to show you in a couple of minutes. It's about 4,000 square feet. They intend to use the property for two things. First, they'll have a showroom in the front where they'll be displaying the granite cabinets and kitchens that they'll be using, that they're going to be selling. And the rear portion, which was a garage, they'll be using for finishing the granite to be installed as countertops or for whatever other uses people may want in their homes or businesses. Mr. Gomes has been in this business for a number of years, both here and in Brazil prior to coming to the United States. He's worked for a number of different companies doing the same type of work. He's experienced in the granite business and the safety procedures that are required. We have, the property is not owned by them. They're going to be, as I indicated earlier, they're going to be renting this property. We've been to the ground, this is in the groundwater protection district. We've had a meeting with the groundwater protection committee, and they have sent a letter to the board with certain recommendations that they suggest for the decision by the board. And that letter was sent some time ago by Mr. Federico, I believe, excuse me, by the
the town engineer, Fred Litchfield.
I'm sorry, Fred. Yeah, I'm sorry. At this time, my clients are seeking these permits as mentioned in the application. And I think the main consideration of the board at this time is the site plan. We've waited quite a while. The owner of the building has prepared a rather extensive site plan. And probably if Kathy, if you could put it up, we could take a look at it.
Let's just bear with me 1 second. Okay, is it up?
It's up.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so there's a site plan. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. And right about where you have the marker is where they're going to be renting. I don't know whether, over here, can you see where I'm pointing?
No, it's actually just my cursor that can
Okay.
work.
So if your cursor is right there, that's the area that they're going to be renting. The front part of it on West Main Street will be where the showroom is. They will be doing some remodeling work within that part of the building, connecting it to the rear portion of the building. In the rear portion of the building, there is a separate room in which they have a cabinet which they will store any hazardous materials they have. And we reviewed the cabinet and the amount of storage that there'll be in there, which is minimum. And I believe in the letter that's been sent to you, it sets forth exactly the amount that they'll be storing and they'll be using. The cabinet would hold, I believe, up to 40 gallons, and they're only going to be storing a maximum of 10 gallons in that particular cabinet. Most of what they use is in small cartridge containers, similar to what you would get at Home Depot if you were going to do some caulking of in your own home of any areas that you may be fixing or trying to seal leaks or so forth. You can see that there is ample parking both in front of the building and to the side of the building. It's my understanding that the owner of the building is going to be paving the sides of the building, and which will provide for plenty of, as I indicated earlier, plenty of parking in that area. In the rear of the building, there will be a couple of containers for waste that will go in there from the granite cutting and from the any other materials that they may have. The site plan shows, although not directly relating to my client, all of the drainage and all of the requirements I believe that the board wanted. It's a site plan, as I indicate, for the entire building and not just for this particular portion of the building. I don't know if anybody has any particular questions on this, or you want me to move on with some other areas.
Does any of the board members have any questions specific to what the applicant has just stated?
So is it just hey Fred, it's Paul. Is it just the section to the left that's dotted line, or is it the whole building?
No, it's only the section to the dotted line where the cursor is. That's the only area that they're going to be using, both the rear, which is a garage, and the front, which is a showroom. And there's a garage doors for entrance and deliveries in the back of the building, the back of the garage.
Okay.
And there's parking both in the front and on the sides.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so you
Brad.
kind of answered the first part of it. So deliveries will be in the back. When will the deliveries occur? Do you know, do you have a specific time or day, AM, PM, etc.?
I don't think there's a particular time of day. It would just been when the business is operating. The deliveries come from the granite companies, and they deliver them as needed. And some granite, maybe slabs, will be stored inside. There's no plans to store anything outside at this time. but the deliveries would be during normal business hours.
And sorry, just a quick follow-up. What are the hours of operation right now, or tentative hours of operation?
I don't know, Sebastian or Patricia, can you answer that question?
Yes, absolutely. So pretty much it will be between 8:30 to 5:30 max, Monday to Friday, and maybe 9 to 12 on Saturdays. But Saturdays will be more the part of the showroom than anything else, because I don't want to work on Saturdays.
I don't blame you.
Don't let my husband hear that.
Okay. No, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, Mark, you have to unmute.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
is there any excessive noise or emissions when they're processing the granite?
No, the way they process the granite is a water system. They use a diamond blade and water to do the finishing for the granite. So there's no excessive noise. The interior of the building, as we went through some extensive details with the groundwater committee, has around the machine, there's like a little gullies that go all the way around so that any of the water drains into that. It goes from there into another machine that recycles all the water, takes out any of the little fibers that may be there from the granite, and then they recycle and reuse the water. And then what's left in the machine from the little slivers that may come off, those then get disposed of.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Sure.
So you're actually, so the showroom is just a typical showroom with a bunch of pieces that are available, and how it's going to the finishing look and stuff. But the back portion is where the actual cutting, right, and the processing of these granite pieces are going to be. Right? So I mean, a granite saw that is essentially just a wet saw is fairly loud from the 2 times that we've gone to get granite before. Are you saying, like, how will you sort of deafen the noise, or do you have any idea on how loud that will be?
Sebastian, could you answer his question?
Yes, they have silence blades on the market today. That's what we normally use. So that make a less noise. And also we're gonna operate with a closed door. So that helps to keep the noise inside.
Okay, if you'd like to continue.
Thank you. If I can just catch up on my notes here. In relation to the application itself, the building inspector has determined in his finding that under section 7.05-030, that this is a approved use and allowed use in this particular area. As we've gone through the site plan, we've been through the groundwater committee, as I indicated before. I've indicated where it's going to be. The chemicals that are used are going to be stored in a particular cabinet that's used specifically for this. As I indicated, it's bigger than is necessary for what we're going to be used. It's currently in the building, and it's in the area where the saw is in the rear portion of the building, and it's in a separate room that is closed off from the rest. Anything that's stored in it will not be on a ground level. Will be up on shelves up above the ground, so that if there was any type of a spill, it's not going to get into the ground, into the building. Most of the sealants and so forth that they use are all sealants, as I indicated, earlier, similar to what you might buy in Home Depot or Lowe's yourself, and that there is very little there that's of any type of a hazardous substance.
Okay. All right. Kathy or Bob, do you have any questions?
I don't particularly have any questions, but I just wanted to note that the site plan is, as Mr. Norris said, is for the entire site. And part of that, and Bob may be able to add some detail to this, but part of the reason for requesting this applicant, even though they're just moving into a portion of an existing building, you know, with existing pavement, we are using this as an opportunity as staff to get an up-to-date site plan for this particular address. So Bob in particular has been working with Mr. George Connors, and which is where this site plan came from Cornerstone. And Mr. George Connors is also, and I know he's on the meeting tonight, but he's been working with Bob, you know, to bring the site plan, to bring the site up to date. And I think the outstanding item now is the fact that this parking area over in here is not paved, and we have discussed with the present owner of the property, S&S, that they will be required, they are going to be required to pave that. And Mr. Connors indicated, you know, their agreement to do so in a letter to Mr. Federico that's dated September 10th. I just sent that to you this afternoon, but Mr. Connors does, indicate in the letter that they are aware that that gravel area has to be paved.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Bob, did you have anything to add at this time?
No. Well, yeah, one thing, just a matter of distinction. Retail is an allowed use by right in this particular property and in the zoning district. The what's before you tonight, I believe, and Kathy can correct me if I'm wrong, is the the fabrication and the chemical storage and that sort of thing, which would require a groundwater use in the groundwater area. One of the other things that they've talked about is getting that tight tank installed, because any interior use of a garage where you can put a vehicle in it means that whatever effluents come out of that garage, it is that water is and that material is contained. Also, if we go back to the special permit back to 1987, it does require a tight tank, and there's been several attempts to locate it. I don't know if it's been located, or there's a rumor going around that maybe it was removed at some point after it was installed. I don't know. But part of this would require that tight tank be installed and noted, and make sure it's functioning. And that's what I have so far.
Okay,
And
so
then I just,
go ahead, Kathy.
no, I was just going to say, and there was also a groundwater, a letter from Fred Litchfield on behalf of the Groundwater Advisory Committee, and the applicant had met with groundwater back in June, and so there is a letter dated June 30th from the Groundwater Advisory Committee, recommending their approval of the company to move into this site, and then they have their standard conditions.
Okay, all right, thank you. I do want to just ask, the letter that we received today from George Connors, it actually references the tight tank and says that I mean, they're indicating that it's there and it's excessive for the use. So I'm just wondering whether has it been confirmed that it is there, but that would be verified before any building permit was granted, Bob?
The tight tank, is specified for the existing garage bays, which presently have floor drains. They have specified a tight tank to go in. I take that letter as saying that they don't have one or they cannot confirm the presence of one, and they intend on putting one in. The tight tank is a requirement that comes under the plumbing code that requires any commercial garage that can take a registered vehicle has to have a system of floor drains, and that material that goes into the floor drains comes either through a gas oil sand separator or into a tight tank to be removed by authorized companies. That is an addition. It's not only in the plumbing code, but it's also something that typically groundwater and conservation like to see, because they know that if anything goes into that tank, it's not going into the groundwater systems. So it's primarily a legal requirement under the plumbing code. However, it is usually encouraged highly and agreed upon by conservation and groundwater.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Norris, your client is aware of the groundwater letter from June 30th, as well as the information about the tight tank. Is that correct?
Yes, if I might indicate that there are no vehicles that my client will be storing inside of the building.
Okay.
And when the granite is delivered, it's going to be delivered outside of the building, and he'll pick it up on a forklift or a small equipment and bring it in, so that he's not going to have that issue with vehicles inside of it. And any uses that he has, he's recycling everything within the building itself.
Good, Kathy.
In the groundwater letter, they mention as a condition that there shall be no floor drains within this particular portion of the building. And I'm just wondering, maybe could Mr. Connors, comment on whether there is a floor drain in this part of the building, and what's the schedule for the installation of the tight tank?
Schedule for the installation of the tight tank is as soon as the town approves the plan that we have presented in response to the building inspector's letter. And hopefully that will occur in time before we have frost. In terms of what's inside the building, it's my understanding that from that dotted line to the east is the only area that the floor drain is active. In the end of the building where your hand was a minute ago, the other end, I understand that floor drain is not connected somehow, but I do not know how, and I can't verify that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, before I open it up to the audience for the public comments, does anybody else have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Paul.
Madam Chair.
Sure.
So do we have a copy of the groundwater advisory letter?
Yeah,
Yes.
but it would have been back in June. So it wasn't anything that was just recently sent to you.
It's dated June 30th.
Okay. And so this, Bob or Kathy, I think you said that this site plan is new though, right?
Yes, this site plan, that was part of the reason why this hearing had been continued a couple of meetings, is because the site plan was being prepared.
Okay, so groundwater made their determination without this new site plan.
Correct, yep.
Okay. And then, Madam Chair, just last question. The chemicals that are being used to finish the granite, do we have a list of those chemicals? And, I think last time, I think it was actually this property when we had Lamborghini come in, the fire chief gave his opinion on the use of the chemicals. I don't know what granite sealant is, but I don't have a copy of the chemicals that are, scheduled to be used on this property.
If I can just, the chemicals, usually the MSDS sheets, Bob?
Yes.
Are usually just sent to the town engineer, because it's typically only he and the groundwater committee that review those. And in his letter, he talks about that the applicant had provided a list of the 9 chemicals and that the total maximum volume to be stored is limited to 10 gallons. I don't have Fred's file in front of me, so I don't have the list of chemicals, but that was something that the groundwater advisory committee would have gone through, and they reviewed what kind of cabinet that which is typical of what groundwater would do. They review the kind of cabinet that's also going to be holding these chemicals.
Okay.
I don't know if
So
that answers your question, Paul,
was that letter sent in June or to us, or was it in
June? Yeah, it's dated June 30th, and it was for your July 1st meeting.
Okay.
So I probably sent it out July 1st. I can certainly send it again. I mean, that's no problem, but. And I looked through, as you were talking, Paul, I looked through the ZBA application, and I don't have the list of chemicals, but that's not, that's normal that I wouldn't have it. It's Fred that usually has it.
If I could,
Yes.
I would indicate at the groundwater committee meeting, we went over this. We went over the cabinet. I went over this in extensive with Fred, and I believe I've also sent a copy of the list of chemicals some time ago to Bob, and I know Fred has them, and he had all the requirements that he wanted in order for them to have their hearing on all of this. And I would also indicate most of the chemicals that they use are sealants, and either that or a cleaner to wipe down the granite, and a lot of it is used more in the home after the countertops have been installed as opposed to in the shop.
Okay, and it does state in the letter that the groundwater unanimously recommends it with the conditions of that letter. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to open.
Chair?
Oh, yep, Mark.
One other thing. Bob, could you express a professional opinion? Is it typical to have a floor drain with an unknown destination, and can it be snaked to find out where it goes? Or
typically a floor drain needs to have some sort of end destination, and the days of a floor drain being installed and just letting it flow into natural ground are over by a long time. In this particular case, if there's a floor drain, we're going to have to look, if there's a floor drain that's not being used, or if it can't be used, we have to worry about what kind of vehicles can enter or exit the garage. Generally, a way around the requirement for a floor drain under the plumbing code is putting up bollards in the area of where the garage door would close to limit the type of vehicles that would be allowed into the building. Basically, what you want to do is have bollards permanently installed and set far enough apart so that they can allow, say, a fork truck, but not a registered vehicle with a plate like a car or a pickup truck or something like that. That is one way a lot of people do get around on a commercial garage to build a commercial garage without having a floor drain in it. The fact that there's a floor drain now, and I thought I heard a comment saying that the groundwater advisory or somebody told the applicant that they can't use the floor drain. We may have to go that route. Disable the floor drain and keep and restrict the type of vehicle access to the bay itself.
Okay.
I think, Bob, you're correct. In their decision, the groundwater committee said, number 4, there should be no floor drains within this portion of the building. So I think that would indicate that whatever floor drains in there would probably have to be sealed.
Yeah, and that typically, like I said, under the plumbing code again, the only way around having a garage bay, a commercial style garage bay without a floor drain is to have some sort of permanent barrier so that a registered vehicle can't go in there. So you're looking at bollards probably 6 to 7 feet apart, considering most cars are about 7.5 to 8 feet wide for a smaller car. So you'd probably be looking at that.
So for clarification, Kathy, I just so that I can keep myself straight here, we have 2 semi-separate but connected issues. For the Granite, the New Bridge Granite Corporation, they needed a special permit for the groundwater overlay district for their use in that end garage. Separate from that, at this opportunity, we said to the owner of the building, well, you need to do a site plan permit for the entire building, which is where this drain issue really is going to lie, right? I mean, it's not this applicant's responsibility, it's the owner, but he still has to adhere to whatever the site plan, if it's approved tonight, what the conditions of the site plan are and the conditions of the groundwater. And that's why they're 2 separate things, but connected, because we took this opportunity to force the hand of or encourage the hand of the owner of the property to come up to code with, or to the site plan approval. Is that correct?
Yes, yep, that's exactly correct.
All right. Okay. Which is why he doesn't have floor drains. So the drainage and finding where the drain goes, to Mark's point, has to be resolved before the building can be occupied, or the operations can move forward. It's just not this new Granite's responsibility. It's bigger than that.
Correct. We started back with when there was a landscaper that a different landscaper than what's there now. But when there was another landscaper that, I mean, there's a tree cutting business there that's been there for years. But when there was a specific landscaping company that wanted to purchase the entire building, that's where we started with that particular applicant about, there was a couple of issues, overriding issues, one of them being the floor drains. And from what I understand, they had hired an engineering company to try to locate the floor drains, and they, or where the floor drains drained into. And because that wasn't able to be resolved because of, either collapsed pipes, or that's why a new tight tank is being installed, which is completely separate from this Granite company that wants to locate in the existing building.
All right, thank you so much. Okay,
And I would indicate one last thing, that my understanding is that there are no floor drains in that portion of the building. The floor drains are in other portions of the building.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, hopefully that didn't make it more confusing.
Well, actually, Madam Chair.
Yes, Brad.
Couple questions, couple comments while I've been listening. So as far as the chemicals, I understand a lot of these chemicals, according to the applicant, that they can be found at Home Depot or Lowe's. I just recall in the past the fire chief getting an idea of what's in there. Have we reached out to the fire chief about these chemicals? Has he sent a letter or made any comments about the chemicals that will be in there?
No, again, Bob's much more in touch with the fire chief than I am on a daily basis, but Every application, before the planning board or the ZBA gets sent to the fire department, along with, numerous other departments. And if they, choose to respond, obviously they do. But in this particular case, I'm going to guess that the quantities were so small that there, we don't have a review letter from the fire chief. And like I said, there's 9. And while you were talking, I also tried to see if I could get into Fred's files, but I can't. And that's how it should be. But I tried to see if I could get into his files about the MSDS sheets, and I can't. But again, there's 9 chemicals that's listed here that the Groundwater Advisory Committee, agreed to.
Yeah, and like the applicant mentioned, I mean, there's no floor drains there. I just wanted to just make sure we're doing our due diligence. I know granite countertops and those types of operations are fairly common these days, so it's really nothing out of the ordinary. That was my first question. The second piece I'm confused with is we're just hearing the special permit about the granite countertop and the manufacturing. I'm confused as to why we were waiting for a site plan. Why are we looking at a site plan? And they're just the renters. They're not the owners of the property. I just don't understand how those two are combined. Bob?
Well, anytime someone applies, I'm sorry, Bob.
Bob raised his hand. Sorry. Sorry,
Go
Fran.
ahead, Bob.
I think Kathy and I were probably going to go down the same trail on this one. Anytime there's a special permit through the ZBA, it's also required that a special permit with site plan review be dealt with as well. Again, when Kathy mentioned that, this is an opportunity because the applicant has to submit some sort of a site plan for review, for parking and things like that. Everybody, including the owner of the building, took this opportunity to say, let's do a good site plan and show some forward thinking and some commitment to making sure the property is safe and reliable. So that's the reason why you have, it's what appears to be a relatively benign special permit situation, but we have on top of it, like you said, an opportunity to improve the lot, and that's why you have such a complicated, if you will, site plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Brad. Kathy,
Madam
did you
Chair.
want something else?
Well, I was just going to say, just to add to that typically, when obviously a new building is being proposed, the site plan, we start from scratch. There isn't any parking, there isn't any landscaping, there isn't any, existing lighting. I mean, the site is void of all of that. In this particular case, everything is already there. Nothing needs to change as far as, parking, landscaping, lighting. Those are the sort of the 3 main components of a site plan approval, and then along with, drainage. And so all of that, is there, but we just needed it memorialized. I mean, there are site plans for this site, but we wanted an updated site plan. And so that's what you have before you. So in your, not that I'm going to assume what you're going to do, but in the event that you approved this special permit, you would also be approving the site plan, and this particular site plan would be referenced in the decision.
Paul?
So I guess, and Fran, this is kind of just to where you're, and just parsing out in my own head. So the use is allowed by right? And the special permit for, one of the special permits in front of us is for the chemical storage, which the groundwater had looked at and, wrote the letter back in June. And then the other thing that we're also looking at is the special permit with site plan review, right? Which is this site plan here today, which was done, I believe, early September. And it says on the application that it requires a favorable determination from Groundwater Advisory Committee. Yet the Groundwater Advisory Committee in their letter on June 30th didn't necessarily have this site plan?
They don't do a site plan review, Paul. They just look at the chemicals that are, they look at what the use that's being proposed, and then, you know, what are the chemicals associated with that. So they had, you know, again, we have older site plans that show the location of the building. I mean, that's not changing. But so they're just looking at what's happening inside the building, what's being stored, what are the quantities being stored, and then they make their determination from there as to whether or not, you know, those chemicals can be used in this particular groundwater district.
Sure, but Kathy, sorry, but they're also paving, right? Because this whole other section that I'm looking at on my screen here, this is all unpaved. So they're basically paving everything to my left, or is it east?
Yep, they're over in here.
So, yep, so all of that is right now completely unpaved, totally, you know, rocks or whatever it is. And so they're essentially paving that, which would cause, you know, an impervious surface, groundwater offlow, you know, a number of things to a property or a site that is located near, obviously, conservation, right? So, like, who makes that, you know, doesn't that fall into groundwater sort of purview to sort of take a look and say, you know, yes, they have the drainage in place. Yes, you know, they've done all of the steps that they need to take to, you know, to drain away all the water, whatever, you know, and then, you know, and go through that process.
Yep, yep, I agree with you. It's just that this paving has nothing to do with what's going on in this building. And this paving is part of the larger project of just what's going on this site in general. Bob and I talked today about the paving for this and whether or not it would need to go before the Groundwater Advisory Committee. First, Fred would make that determination with Bob. So when the applicant is ready to do that, then they would be definitely back in front of staff and then possibly back in front of the Groundwater Advisory Committee. But this over here doesn't have anything to do with these people leasing existing space.
But to Paul's point, I guess we've tied it to them by saying that there's a special permit for groundwater District 3 for their leasing of this corner of the building. We've tied it to that bigger piece that, I mean, I think that's what Paul's trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess essentially, Madam Chair, you know, that's, I mean, the granite piece in and of itself, and they kind of explain, like, they're using the front portion of the left, you know, they're going to cut some, you know, stuff in the back, and it's just on the left side. Groundwater looked at the chemicals that they were going to be using, and, you know, even though, you know, it's a very small quantity, and, you know, they'll have tight tanks, which aren't even, you know, I don't even know really necessarily how, looking at this, how they're going to be storing or catching. I mean, you know, like cutting granite, from what I've seen in the past, is a very messy process. How are they catching all these different things? I mean, that's a separate story. But I guess Groundwater looked at that and said, okay, this is, you know, generally fine with their letter. But then this site plan, which has just come in front of us, or, you know, sent in the last couple of weeks, essentially has a whole other section of paved surface that has nothing to do with the granite application. I don't know. I guess my point is that I would think that this was something that would be in front of groundwater so that they can take a look at it, since they are the board that is charged with determining what the impact of this impervious surface will be. And given the location of this property, which is very close to, you know, Groundwater 3 and conservation, because this is, I mean, across the street isn't the Cold Harbor Trail, right?
Mm-hmm. This whole project, well, not the granite, because that doesn't kick off, you know, conservation. I mean, you know, again, someone leasing an existing space. But this whole project has been before Conservation Commission. And as a result of working with the Conservation Commission, this whole drainage area is now operating correctly. and efficiently. So that's a result of the work with the Conservation Commission on this parcel. And again, I don't know if paving alone is a use that would kick off a special permit from the Groundwater Advisory Committee. And that's something, again, that Bob and Fred will have to, which is how they work and, review whether things have to go before groundwater or not. This is groundwater 3. I'm not even sure where the groundwater line is. I don't know if the entire site, I don't work with the Groundwater Advisory Committee, so I'm sorry about that I don't know exactly where the groundwater line is. So I'm not even sure if that's in groundwater, but regardless, that is something that Bob and Fred would take a look at and determine, what kind of permitting that needs.
Okay. All right. I think I just, out of respect for the hands that are up, Mr. Creamer has had his hand up for a bit. So I'm going to ask just to get some input from the audience, and then we can regroup if it either clarifies or confuses things more. When I call you, I do still need you to state your name and your address for the record. So Mr. Creamer, I'm going to add you now.
Good evening. My name is Michael Creamer, and I currently live at 1 Buck Hill Road in Northborough. So I had 3 questions for the board I was hoping to address to you.
Sure.
One, there was a lot of questions about the chemicals that were being installed and the material safety data sheets that came along with them. So my question for the board is, if there were to be a spill, how does the board control, or what does the board need to do in order to maintain that the owners there and the use have the proper materials to clean up the spill? How does that get addressed?
Okay, all right. I want to ask if Mr. Federico could answer that, or?
Yeah, I can answer that. Typically, that would be an answer probably that Fred Litchfield would be willing to give, but I've heard him give this answer before, so I'm reasonably comfortable in answering this. The chemical storage cabinet is capable of holding a certain amount of chemicals should there be a leak within the cabinet. Should there be a leak exterior of the cabinet, I believe that a chemical spill control kit is required to be on the lot as well. So if there is something that isn't in the cabinet and it falls onto the floor, they can pick it up. Usually it's Speedy Dry and dams, and they're called diapers, but it's a type of a matting that you lay down and it absorbs all the chemistry. And then that can be put into the plastic tub and taken away by authorized personnel. Hope that
So were
answers
those
your question?
Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Creamer,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
Yeah, are those things required to be on site?
Yes, those are, those can be certainly written into the special permit order of conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and do you have another question?
Yeah, I had 2 others if you wouldn't mind, please.
Sure.
My second question was regarding the drains. I think we've heard, as far as what I've heard, we've heard conflicting information on if they are there or if they're not there. If they were there, we don't know where they go. How does the board plan to address that issue to get a final clarification on what is or is not there and how it does or does not drain? And Mr. Federico, I did really appreciate the additional information you gave on the ballards as an option there. I thought that was very good.
Mhm. Again, in terms of the drains, the system, the tight tank that we discussed earlier and the floor drains that lead up to it, those are required to be there, and the system is supposed to be functioning as requirements set forth in 1987 special permit. So that particular tank having to be reinstalled and making sure the drains work would have to be installed and certified prior to the granite company actually being allowed to operate there.
even though it's not related to their actual use.
I would probably tie that condition in.
Okay, fabulous. All right, Mr. Creamer?
Yeah, and the third question was regarding the sound that was briefly discussed. I understand that there are some different types of saw blades, and the work will be done during normal business hours with the doors closed. I would ask the board though, could we possibly request a sound study be done? I understand that those are the normal working conditions, but what if the blade were to break and we have to open the doors? We live right next door, across the way, obviously. And with a lot of us working from home now, with a lot of these Zoom calls, I just hope we're not adding significant noise to the area. So could a sound study be added as a third condition there?
Well, I don't know that I would imagine it could be requested at this moment of the applicant. Whether it could be required, I don't know whether you have to have some, I guess I'd have to ask, do you already have to know what level of sound exists?
Yeah, what I've seen in the past is you could hire a consulting agency to come out here and they would do some spot checks along Buck Hill Road and along the rear of the property to take measurements of the normal conditions during the day and at night. And then they would do some modeling to show what the equipment puts off for sound and do some calculations to see what the new sound levels would be.
Yeah, so I understand what it would entail. I don't, like I said, it can be requested. I don't know at what level would it have to be proposed, Kathy, for us to require it?
I'm sorry, I don't understand. At what level,
So-
meaning for this
so I'm-
particular applicant, or, I mean, it would be the owner. Somehow we would have to, I have to think about that, because it would be, these people don't own the property, so they wouldn't necessarily be able themselves to order it. It would have to be the owner of the property that would order it. And as Mr. Creamer just said, what we would do in a sound study is on the industrial sites, what the planning board has done in the past is require a sound study. So it's typically done when there's raw land. So you determine what the sound is, at present. And then once the building has been built and the whatever process it is in place, you do a comparison there. So in this particular situation, there's existing businesses. So I guess, it would basically be a before and after, before the granite company started to lease space, and then once they were up and operating.
All right, if I could ask Ms. Tixeria or her husband, can you talk a little bit about, obviously you're inside the building with the door closed. Do you have any opinion on the sound or the volume?
Sure.
Well, the cutting machine, doesn't make any higher noise than a car running. And the polishers doesn't make more noise than a dentist office, because they work with air polish machines. So it's not that higher, noise on that.
If I may,
Sure.
I'm reading through the zoning bylaw book, and under environmental performance standards, which is section 705040, it does speak to noise. And in this particular case, the processing of the granite is allowed no more than 5 decibels higher than the ambient sound. It doesn't say whether or not this study needs to be taken before or after. The use is in the building, but I would suspect that it probably has to be taken after, because you really don't have any way of noticing or measuring with the sound until somebody is actually in the building doing that work. However, we do have sound meters that are capable of doing this. And we can take at least an ambient pre-construction or pre-occupancy noise level and keep that in a logbook. And then if they do come and they start fabricating, we'll take noise measurements. And if the difference is more than 5 decibels on the A scale, then the applicant or the occupant of the building is going to have to do something about it.
Okay, thank you, Bob. All right, Mr. Creamer, did you have any other questions?
No, those were the only 3, so I appreciate hearing me out.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the next person that had their hand up was Patricia Kress. And again, if you could state your name and your address. Okay, Patricia? Okay, I'm going to mute her and go on to the next one, which is E. Hansen.
Oops. Hello, can you hear me? Eric Hansen, 6 Buck Hill Road.
Yes, we can, Mr. Hansen.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, I just had a couple of questions about it. One, I wanted to know the noise level, which you just sort of addressed, is a concern for me as well, living not probably within a couple hundred yards at most of that property. Also, I had a question, and it was addressed, I think, by Mr. Blanchett briefly, about the forklifts and how many typical deliveries are coming in a day. Forklifts obviously have the backup safety mechanisms that beep as they move. If there are multiple trucks in a day, 5, 6 trucks a day, how many slabs of granite are typically on a truck? Is each slab have to be removed individually? So ultimately I'd be concerned, if it takes an hour to unload a truck, that's a lot of forklift noise going on back and forth. So that was one issue. I was wondering if we could make it as part of a recommendation for the business that all fabrication must have the doors closed. I know that's their intention, but my concern is if we leave it open-ended, they eventually are allowed to open the doors, and it was never put in as a restriction that the doors had to be down, that they would eventually be able to operate that way. They also mentioned the storage of granite slabs as being inside, and they don't have an intention of them being stored outside. But again, I always worry about when you start to say, well, we're not going to have anything stating you can't do it. Next thing you know, they have, 30, 40, 50, 100 slabs outside, and they're moving them around with forklifts. It really changes the type of business that is there. The last point I wanted to ask about was the parking. Currently, as you know, you're well aware, 329, 333 is under appeal as far as it's deeming being a construction site versus whether it's allowed or not allowed with the current tree company that is there. That lot where they're talking about paving, it looks like they want to go on to 333, which has always been a gravel or dirt lot. So I'm a little concerned that we're all of a sudden saying we're going to pave that. And the reason we have to pave it is because of runoff or groundwater. But yet currently there are large numbers of trucks that are being parked on that property that have been under contention. You say they are allowed by right to use this, but I'm wondering, is that allowed by right to be there? The cutting of granite, is that falling under the determination that construction yard and industrial use is allowed, which is under appeal, or is it allowed by right based on what is allowed on that property? So I don't know if that's clear or not, but that concerns me. If we're saying it's allowed by right for something that is under appeal, what if that appeal is lost and all of a sudden it's deemed construction yards and things are not allowed there? Would this business then be in violation, but we approved it? And that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
No, that's all right.
Sorry, I accidentally, sorry, I apologize.
Oh, Ms. Backstrom, that's fine. You actually ended me right as I was ending, so that's fine. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so I do want to ask the applicant first, do you take any issue if it was approved that the door would have to remain closed?
Sebastian?
No, there's no problem for the door being closed. We can work with the door closed.
Okay, to the delivery concerns, how many slabs of, once you've established, your showroom, how many slabs of granite in a good business market do you expect to get on a regular basis?
Well, we sell the kitchens, then we buy the slabs from our suppliers. So that's not that big amount of slab inside because, we don't stock slabs anymore because we have a lot of suppliers where you can send the customers there, they see the slab, then we buy the slab, bring and cut. And we try to get all these slabs in the same day like this. I don't want to get in trucks every day, deliver 1 or 2 slabs. We ate like a week and then they bring like a 7 or 8 slabs and that can be unloaded in 15 minutes.
15 or 50?
15.
15 minutes, okay. Okay. And if it was approved with a restriction on outside display of granite, that would be agreeable as well?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then the last question, I believe, Bob, you can clarify. My understanding is what you said is the showroom is commercial and allowed by right and groundwater. What about the backside of the building?
Backside is what requires a special permit because it's a chemical and fabrication in a groundwater zone.
But the use itself is allowed. So
by a special permit. If it was not in a groundwater situation, I believe it would be a use allowed by right.
Okay, all right, I think I'm going to try back to Patricia Crest. It looks like your hand is back. I'm just going to double check and see if you're there.
Hi, hello?
Hi, okay, we
Oh,
can hear you.
thank you. I keep saying that the host muted me, so I apologize for that, but I'm glad to be here. My name is Patricia Kress. I live at 60 Old Colonial Road. You can see Old Colonial Road on that site map if it was adjusted just a little bit higher. I, as well as my neighbors, we are all on private wells, so I do have concerns in regards to wastewater. And I heard that the applicants state that the water being used during the fabrication was going to be recycled, but I don't understand exactly what that means. Where is the wastewater that the business produces? Where is that wastewater intending to go? Where do you intend that to go?
Okay, I'll ask Sebastian, can you answer that question for the resident?
Yes. The water goes to some canal on the floor, and then we have a machine that separates the mug from the water, and we reuse the water. So there's no a mug on the floors and all that stuff. The water will be always reusing that.
If I could maybe clarify a little further, when we did the site water, the hearing with the committee, we have a plan that shows the location of the table where the cutting is done. And it shows around the saw a 6-inch gully that goes completely around the saw, and then it drains over to a machine. It's called an Abaco dehydrator. And in that machine, which is against one of the walls, that's where this recycling is done and separation of the water from the muck that's cut. And then the water, as indicated before, is reused and the muck is disposed of.
Thank you. Ms. Crest, does that answer your question?
It does. I do have one other question, if I may.
Yes.
In regards to, and Madam Chair, I appreciate you recognizing that this is tied to the other application, but this applicant has indicated parking along what would be on my left of this site plan. And there are a number of trucks in there already. I'm wondering if there's going to be dedicated parking in that area for the applicant. And along with that question, the second part of that would be, how many vehicles does the applicant expect to have there, either from their company owned or employee owned during business hours? I'm concerned about leakage as that area is not paved. I am concerned about chemicals from vehicles going into our groundwater.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sebastian, how many vehicles for your employees and staff?
Well, it'll probably be around like 4 or 5,
Okay.
include myself, include my
Okay.
car.
Okay, and then I'll defer to Bob on the other, though I don't think our zoning allows for dedicated parking when it's a multi-use building, but I'm not sure.
No, it's not necessarily dedicated parking, but each type of occupancy does require a certain amount of parking spaces based upon the square footage of the of the use of the property, and that is something that comes under the site plan review. This being, if you look at the building, the entire front of the building has always had parking in front of it with the other occupancies. But I think what they're doing now is because those parking spots have faded and things like that, and they're putting in a handicapped accessible ramp to the front. It's a requirement under the Architectural Access Board to make sure that the parking lots are striped with the appropriate amount and style of accessible parking spaces, and therefore regular parking spaces as well.
So would that have to be done before the applicant took occupancy?
Yes.
Okay. Because from what I've observed from the front of the building, and I go by that building every single day, I have observed it looks like there's an overhang that's unsupported, and it could just be that they're in the process of that construction work right now.
They are.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Kress. Okay, we have another person in the audience, Mr. Bufalino. Oh, no, cancel. Allowed to talk. Why does? Okay, it says here that Mr. Bufalino is using an older version of Zoom. I'm going to come back to you. I'll get help. Ms. Kraus.
Hi, Joanne Kraus, 10 Buck Hill Road. Thank you. I'm wondering about combining a leased property with a site plan this size that encompasses several different lots. I mean, there's a 333 West Main, there's several different parcels here, all being proposed under one site plan for the small business that is before you today. Why are we, shouldn't this be a separate thing to approve that whole site plan and have it go through the proper, groundwater and everything like that, then try to just push this through today?
Okay, that's going to be a staff question.
Yep, I'll take a crack at it first, Fran. This property, as everyone knows, I mean, has been in existence regardless of what the uses are, and I certainly understand that that's something contentious with the abutters. But if you just look at the site overall, this site has been occupied for probably 50 plus years. So a site plan was originally approved by the town at some point. And then that site plan has been modified over the years as the changes, and who's been in and out of that building over the years. But on one hand, this might go under like, a good deed, goes unturned, because what we were, as staff, what we are trying to accomplish is that we get an updated site plan. And so unfortunately, our avenue was, okay, the next person that comes in, which in this particular case is the Granite Company, which is an allowed use, but does need a special permit because of the chemicals that they will be storing. So on one hand, I certainly understand the confusion, but what we were just trying to do on a staff level is to get an updated site plan for that site. Doesn't matter what the uses are. We just want to know where the building is, where the parking is occupied, and then I think the next site plan or the next portion of it, I think this might have to do with, what's it labeled? The erosion control plan. so I don't want, I don't, I mean, it was not our intent as staff to end up, you know, punishing the next applicant that wants to, again, occupy an existing building with existing parking and have them get, you know, unnecessarily delayed because we as staff are looking for, you know, a updated site plan.
Okay, so Kathy, can I, so the reality is doing a site plan approval along with this special permit for the groundwater for this leasee, we're really just looking at the property. This has no bearing on what is an allowed use or what type of variance or anything else that can come down the pike with regards to anything from 329 through 333, including the appeal of the zoning enforcement officer's current interpretation of something.
Correct.
It's really just about, can we clean up the piece of property through a site plan approval while we have somebody on the hook, which is looking for a special permit for groundwater?
That's exactly what we are trying to do as staff. And it's been, you know, for about 2 years now that that we've been trying to figure out how to get the updated site plan. When the questions originally arose with that proposed landscaper about, you know, the floor drains, that the floor drains were a big question, and then, you know, why this drainage area wasn't functioning.
Okay,
so
thank
you know, that's been resolved, and now the floor drains are being resolved with the tight tank. And I can't, this may not be appropriate right now, but when some of the board members were asking about groundwater, you know, given that you have a meeting next week, and I know you have other hearings there, but you know, that's a possibility to ask, if you have additional groundwater questions, to ask those of the town engineer. You know, he's on vacation this week, but you know, he'll be present for your next meeting on the 29th.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Ms. Kraus, knowing that this is not related to the appeal of the 329 and 333, did that answer your question about why it's been lumped together?
Well, I'm still concerned because, you know, we have this appeal going through about use. And I'm hearing you saying that this granite company can be in there by right, but this is an industrial use, and we're arguing that the industrial use of these properties is not there by right, and that it has not been used for this in the last several years, and that it's not allowed. So I would really ask that these decisions be made after our appeal it has been heard, because this
actually,
is a whole parking lot.
Actually, I mean, it's if you were successful in your appeal, this decision would become moot. So moving forward with it, since it is in front of us this evening, probably is fairer to the applicant, and we'll see what happens at the next step with the appeal of the zoning board, the zoning enforcement officer's interpretation, right? Because it would be moot if the appeal is upheld. This use would not be allowed.
That's what we're arguing. And I'm also asking that the site plan not be approved today, because that is also affected by the appeal.
I'm sorry, but from what I understand from the town planner, is not. So I'm just gonna ask you to table that for now, because I don't want to get too far.
Question?
Oh yeah, if you have a question related to the groundwater special permit, yep.
So if this site plan is approved, does that mean that parking lot, that paved parking lot is also approved?
I believe that the town planner stated that it is under discussion between the building inspector and the engineer as to whether it's going to require any additional permitting and or approval. Is that correct, Kathy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the approval of the site plan does not necessarily mean the approval of paving that lot. Will there be any more discussion on that? Because
On
once
the
it's paved,
paving?
it'll never.
Oh, sorry, I did it again. I apologize, Ms. Kraus. I have to just hold my hands back here, take it away from the mouse. So Kathy, if the site plan approval goes through and with or without any type of conditions related to parking, will the pavement of that lot still have to go under review by staff?
Definitely by staff. Whether or not it will go to the groundwater advisory committee, that's what I'm not sure of.
Okay.
But again, all this site plan does is memorialize what is on the ground. This doesn't have anything to do with the uses that are, or the use that's under appeal or not under appeal, or all this does is memorialize. This is the location of the building. This is the location of the parking. They're showing the gravel area. So that's what this site plan does.
So this doesn't show to the left or my left. This is not showing the future paved lot. That's not what this is showing.
Well, it's showing this area,
Yeah.
Joanne.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it's showing that area.
And it's showing that it will be paved, and that's what I'm really nervous that this whole thing's going to be approved when I know that area was never intended to be used for that, and it would require, I think, some groundwater approval. I'm worried about all of this because we have 13 drinking wells just a matter of feet from there, and it concerns me, and I think it concerns the whole neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so now I'm going to go. I think I lost somebody who had an old Zoom. I apologize to that person. All right, so I just want to run this back through board members for any questions, concerns, or thoughts.
Madam Chair.
Paul.
So I think that, my initial thought on this is, I think that the Granite people have been very forthcoming in the information that they've been given or given the board, and that they've provided all the information that I think we as a board need. I guess the only thing that I would like confirmation on is either Fred or Groundwater's sort of stamp of approval on this sort of new site plan, which, if you just taking a quick look at it, has 42 regular car spaces and about 11 what are truck spaces. So, I just would like to have either Fred's, a letter from Fred, or whether it goes to groundwater or not, just some sort of decision there that says, yes, this site plan approval, which we need to give, is something that is, good.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, this is Brad. I agree as well. I personally don't have an issue with the Granite Company itself, the special permit. I'm very uncomfortable making a final decision with the site plan without it having go through groundwater, or at least a letter from Fred, or if Fred can answer questions for us when he's back from vacation.
And whether that's, catching up with Fred on Monday and we push this to next week, or, whatever the case is. I just, given the history of this property, would probably feel a little more comfortable, as the board making the decision, because again, I think the site plan is something that's a little bit newer than what we've received in the past. That's all.
All right, fair points, Dick, or, oh, did I lose Mark? Did I ask? Oh, there he is. Okay. Do either of you have any questions or concerns at this point?
I agree with Paul and Brad. I think we ought to put this off until groundwater and conservation can weigh in on the parking. And also on the tight tank. We've been hearing about the tight tank for 2 years now, at least over a year, and nobody's found it. And I found that incredible. And I've talked to a former employee of ZECO who said there was never a tight tank there. So, I think we have to assume at this point in time, there is no tight tank. And whatever we've heard in the past has not been correct about it. And that we have to put something in place with the tight tank being installed in that building.
Okay, all right. Mark?
I don't have any comments.
Okay, all right. So Kathy, two things. Can we, if the applicant agrees to continue it to as soon as next Tuesday? I mean, from a posting standpoint? And
Yes, yeah.
can we, if we chose, separate them and do the special permit for the groundwater for the granite separate from the site plan? I don't know that we
Yes.
want to, but
You can. The zoning bylaw has a provision where somebody can apply for the special permit first and site plan after. I honestly don't know why someone would do that. I mean, people typically separate them out if they're looking for a variance.
Okay.
Because of how risky a variance could be. But
Okay.
but we can definitely I mean, granted, Fred is off the whole week, but I can tell him in advance and have him review this on Monday.
Okay. All right. Well, if it is, all right. So to the applicant and their representative, are you, would you allow us to request a continuance to next week?
If I might, as chairman, a couple of things. As far as the floor drains are concerned in this part of the building and the tight tank, I think that can be resolved fairly simply by just having either the building inspector or the town engineer do a site visit. And we'll know immediately whether they're there. And I'm advised that they're not there, and that would, I think, put that issue to bed. As far as the site plan approval is concerned, what I don't want to do is get hung up on a whole site plan approval for this site when the only things that we're really concerned with, I think, are the parking and the area around it, and not the entire site plan, because we're only dealing with a very small portion of this building. If the board wants to continue it another week, obviously we're not going to object to it, but I don't want to get hung up if the board starts getting into a whole bunch of issues regarding the site plan on the approval of this of my client. They were anxious to get going, and we've been waiting for quite a while. We did have an original plan, but it didn't comply with the requirements. So rather than spend money for a separate site plan, we were waiting for this one to get done. And this is obviously much more extensive than what my client would normally need for this type of an approval.
I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to ask you for a continuance. All right, I do want to, all right, so because we are going to continue, I'm expecting a motion to continue this until a week from tonight. I see that I just want to give Mr. Zeiton a chance because he did not speak before. And Mr. Zeiton, knowing that we are going to continue it to hopefully to next week, do you still have something, a point you wanted to make or a question?
Yeah, the question I had is, so is this still going to go before groundwater? That's not totally clear to me before your next meeting if you continue.
No, it won't go past groundwater. It will be reviewed by the town engineer. If he determines that it does need to, then that would then continue it beyond next week. Does that sound right, Kathy?
Mm-hmm.
She nodded her head yes.
Yeah, sorry, correct.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Zeiton?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, okay. All right, so since we are going, so what does the rest of the board think?
I think it's appropriate to have these questions straightened out by a visit by the inspector.
Okay, so
Yeah,
if
I agree. Great. As long as Bob and Fred think they could do it in a week, but I mean, it's up to them. And if if we say it's a week and it's not, then we punt.
That's
Okay.
right, right. As opposed to putting it off for a whole month when it can be resolved in a week.
Right.
Okay. All right. So then do I hear a motion?
I move that we continue this hearing to next week, which is September 29th at 6 p.m.
And that was Mark
Okay.
Ratan and a Dick Rand second. Okay, roll call. Mark,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and Fran, I. Okay, well, thank you everyone for your patience and attention. Hopefully we will get the answers and be ready to come to consensus next week.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so, all right, so the only thing, we have no minutes.
Correct.
I know that the decision for Rustic Circle or Street was out
Rustic
there. I don't,
Drive.
Rustic Drive.
Sorry.
Okay, has it been resolved? Did we find out what the swimming pool was all about?
Yeah, well, that was my cut and paste.
Okay, nice.
So yes, so the Leslie had an edit for me, and Bob had a couple edits, and I made those. So if nobody else has any, oh, and Dick Rand, just confirmed those edits. So if nobody else has any questions on it, Fran, if you can,
Yep.
We can meet in the parking lot tomorrow. You
Sure.
can sign it, or
Okay.
you and I can just figure that out offline, but
Okay.
it's ready
all
to
right.
be signed.
Okay, all right. Anything else for us until next Tuesday?
Nope, that was the only thing that I had, was just the decision.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay,
till-
that was a motion from Brad, and I believe Dick seconded, so we'll do a roll call. Brad,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Fran, I. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Night.